What's going on, guys? I am here with my good friends Joe Pircher, Gary G6 Turner. Welcome to the framework, guys. I appreciate you being here. I mean that.
Hello.
And so let's dive right in. You know, we have about 35, 40 minutes. So let's talk about the 2020 Tampa Pro.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
That's good.
given the time that we have, I'd like to jump right into to our top five. I'll share my screen here just so we could show everybody who may not know who's actually in it.
What do you got? You have the lineup pulled up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Wow, this is like some professional stuff here.
Yeah, man, how to be prepared.
Okay. Yep.
So how do we feel? Who wants? Do we want to start with who we think is going to win the show? Because I feel like we can have that conversation the whole time, or do we kind of want to just talk about?
Well, why don't we do? I don't. You're the host. I don't want to jump on your
No,
toes.
please, man.
Why don't we do? Why don't we just lay out our top fives and then we can discuss, like, kind of spend a chunk talking about like the 1-2 battle of, if we all agree on who it's gonna be or whatever. I'll just dive into it. I don't give a shit.
I'm sure we all pretty much agree on who we
on that top two. I think. Yeah. All right, but
No,
I'll go first. I'll go 5 through 1.
Sure.
So I wanted to do my homework when you asked me to come on this. I wanted to make sure, especially with the lineup, it's not stacked with guys that are, household names. So I did my homework. So I have Phil, I don't know how to say this guy's last name, Plahar. I have him coming in 5th. He competed in Tampa last year with some of these guys. And out of everybody that's in the lineup from last year, he placed the highest. So I think he was 8th or 9th last year at Tampa. A lot of dense muscle, and he was ripped last year. So if he, I can only go based on from what I saw last year. But big guy, and he brought some good conditioning. So I have him 5th. I have Ron Gordon in 4th. This is a guy that was also at Tampa last year. Finished behind Phil, but this guy has put on a ton of size since then. This guy's a freak. Gary, this is that guy. His Instagram is RPG.
Yeah. This is when we were talking about. We
Yeah.
were talking about my crab shot, and you sent me this guy's backyard crab shot, which he said is one of his worst poses, and it looks like an all-star pose. It was great. Yeah.
No, this guy's a freak. And with this being, kind of, I don't want to shit on anybody, but it, kind of being a little bit of a lackluster lineup as far as who could get there. Even just the total number of competitors is down. I was looking last year, there was, 6 or 7 guys that were tied for 16th last year because they had that many people in the show.
You also know why. This is usually the last show before the Olympia. Pircher usually have shows all year.
Right.
And this is the last.
This is the first show of the year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's good that we have this. And it's good that I believe is Tim Gardner
Tim Gardner,
promoter?
Yeah.
He's like super bodybuilding, so he would do everything he can to keep this going.
I
there's
saw him, Palumbo gave him a big shout out and was like, I've seen this guy behind the scenes, like going to the end of the earth to make sure that this show goes off. So
what a crazy thought. I just want to back up for a second, Joe. It is so crazy to think that we're going into August and this is the first show of the year.
Well, the Arnold, but
yeah, I mean,
after the world ended.
Yeah, basically. I mean, even the Arnold wasn't the same.
No, it wasn't. But to say what Joe's saying, he said like that the lineup was a little lackluster. I think, yes, I agree with that, but I also think these are the kind of shows that these guys that you're seeing now, the ones that are good, that are going to win, are going to be your next level of Olympia competitors in the next 5 years. And we're going to see mainstay. They're just not there yet. Eventually, your Dexter Jacksons, Phil Heaths, they're going to be gone for good, and they're going to have spots. Rolly Winkler's gone, so they're going to be filled with guys, like Ian Valeri, Hunter Labrada. They're going to be all coming up, and then those are going to be your mainstay pros. This is just a preview. It might be a little lackluster because we don't see Dexter Jackson versus Rolly versus Big Ramy right now, but this is going to be good.
So Gary, who do you consider an up and comer in this lineup? Like who's going to be a guy that do you think might stand out to you?
You guys didn't let me get through my top 5.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Go.
All right, so because I want to get to this, so I have a dark horse who I think is an upcoming guy, big time, coming in at third. Seth Shaw,
big slank.
Big slank.
He's good. He's ready. He's got the hair. He's got the hair going.
He's got a lightning bolt shaved into his head. I love it.
Perfect beard edged out.
This guy, I've been following this guy for a long time, and I think that I am definitely a little biased because, you know, they say in bodybuilding that you wind up being attracted towards, like, you know, what you aspire to be or what you could possibly see yourself being. This guy is a tall bodybuilder. I'm a tall bodybuilder. You know, I know that he's going to come up later. For example, like Dorian Haywood is a guy that's got a ton of muscle. He's in great shape, but he's one of these like 5'4", you know, meatball type guys. And for me, that's just never done it. That's never been a physique that I've enjoyed because I don't think I could ever, you know, I think part of that is because I could never see myself being that, you know, being a taller bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So I like Seth. I think that he's made a ton of improvements to his back, which was kind of holding him back on the pro level. He pretty much smashed everybody at North Americans a couple of years back, and then he's kind of drifted in the middle call-outs of some pro shows. I think he had a 5th or a 6th in Chicago. Yeah, I think this could really be a breakout show for him. It looks like he's totally peeled. His shape is out of control. He posted a front double on his page, I think last night or this morning, and it's crazy. He's got one of these physiques too. It's a feature you don't see it on a lot of guys, but when some guys get really peeled, they almost get like this like upper abdomen striation that comes like across the lower part of their chest, and he's got it. So I think that just speaks to the shape that he's in. And then I would say Hunter is going to be second in his pro debut, and I have Ian winning. We can dive into that whole conversation like as a group in a little bit, but I just think that Ian has held that muscle. They're both going to weigh about the same, but I think Ian has just held that muscle for a longer amount of time. And it's got a little bit more of a grainy look. That's not to say Hunter isn't grainy. Anything that I say, it's not taking anything away from Hunter. I think both of these guys actually have pretty similar strengths. Like if you go shot for shot, both of their physiques are kind of similar in their strengths. But I think Ian's back is going to be the difference. I think his back is much better than Hunter's, and I think that'll be the difference. So I'll kick it over to Gary now that I got my top 5 out of the way.
Yeah, I think all three of us agree on the top 2. So I'm interested to hear that 3 through 5 for you, Gary.
I have Seth Shaw in third, and you know, and I'll go from 3, 4, 5. And I know that listen, I've seen it before. Seth does not look like much in his off season because he just doesn't look as impressive as a taller guy. He's heavier, sure, but he doesn't look like bigger than the world. He's a fun-loving guy. I know he loves bodybuilding, but he's not like, you know, like how like some of us are like psychotic. He likes to have fun too. And then he's one of those guys that creeps up on you with the insane shape. And even like 5 weeks out, you're like, oh, okay. And then like he posts a picture like his front double bicep yesterday, and it's just like, dude, his waist looks like a schoolgirl's waist. And that just makes that gigantic 6'2" frame look like that. And then when he gets into lineups is where he really shines. I would have never picked him for winning the North Americans. Then he came out and he won the class, and then he came out for the overall, and he started bad. I'm like, dude, this guy's going to win. When you see some people in the lineups, they look better than they do alone, you know, and then some people look better alone. You know, you got to kind of everybody's different. I have Seth Shaw. I still think once he gets in that lineup, yes, he's going to look smaller than Hunter and Ian, but I think it's going to look nice is what it's going to look like up there. I think I have somebody in fourth that I think will break. He'll either miss it completely or he'll hit it, and he's made improvements. I have Dorian Haywood in fourth. I think that Dorian's one of those guys that does get favorable placings. He has in his I actually competed against Dorian. He beat my fucking ass as a heavyweight in the 2013 Junior Nationals. I think Dorian took fourth at that Junior Nationals. and that was my first national show. I took 10th, but it was just like light, head and shoulders. Obviously, since then, what he is as a pro, he's doubled what he was back then. But he isn't the most shapely guy. He's got a ton of muscle. He comes peeled. I think that he's going to get a look like that. I think that, and I think RPG is going to be 5th place. That's just where I think it's going to be. I think if that guy's on, he's scary as shit. He is a little bit of an older guy. He was older. I believe that he also won the Masters. He turned pro at North Americans. I can't remember if it was in the Open or the Masters or both. It probably was both.
I think he won both.
Yeah. So I have him in 5th, but it's there's not that many guys, but I think that each of them are going to present a case. I mean, listen, these guys have been dieting probably really early in the year, and these are just the shows. Hunter Labrada wasn't planning this. He's playing on New York Pro in May. The guy's been in prep since January or February. And then he had to pull it back and was eating burgers every day because he was shredded already just to hold them off, until he could get going again. I didn't even really know Seth Shaw was doing the show until I started seeing these like peeled out, 2 week out photos. I'm like, okay, he's doing the show. So, and then Haywood posts a lot where you'll see he's in the gym screaming and shit like that. So he's a pretty animated guy. That's what I think what's going to go on with that.
Hunter's pretty much gone through 2 full preps because
full prep. Yeah, that's I was going to say
the original New York Pro date. Got to a point where he was maybe like, I would say like he got to a point where it looked like he was maybe 3 or 4 weeks away from being ready. And then they had to put food back in. They pulled cardio out. He did a great job, I feel like, of kind of building up his brand this year, like documenting the whole process. I know that it made me more interested in following him along.
It's incredible. There was people that have asked, all we need to do is just get shoulder surgery and then we show up this way? Dude, he was half the size. That guy was on the sideline, fucked up with shoulder problems. And then it just morphed and everything just really came together. His legs like blew up even more. He had big legs to begin with. But it just like, dude, I saw him in person when he turned pro, like in the gym. I took a picture with him and he was big then. I think he weighed about 240 when he turned pro as a super, and he was big. And I think he's going to get on stage, probably dried out in the high 250s, if
probably
not the low 260s.
I think like 255, they said.
Dude, that's a nice weight, man. He's 5'10", 5'9". That's a really nice weight. And to be as grainy as he is,
I've been impressed with how, especially the fact, like, we knew that he had the big quads.
Yep.
And I've been impressed, like, knowing that he had surgery on his upper body. The shoulder is an integral part of every upper body day of the week. And knowing that he had surgery on that, and then to come back and not only put the muscle on, but it's got like a dense, grainy look to it. It's not like, and nothing against him and rest in peace to him. But Dallas put on a ton of muscle in a short amount of time, but it had like kind of like a softer new muscle look to it. And Hunter's got this grainy, dug out look, even to the musculature of his upper body. Like he hits that front lat spread, and like his lower pec is like dug out.
It's like I never told you this, but I kind of feel like the kind of muscle Dallas had, the look, was very similar to what Derek has right now. Very, very bubbly, but not grainy. And it will come in time. So if Derek is listening to this, that doesn't mean you're not going to have that at some point. But no. And the thing is, I think that Hunter also has the Evan Centopani effect. I want to see what that muscle looks like when the tan goes on, because he is white as shit.
He does have that. You're right.
Evan always looks better without the tan. He's grainy, and there's some to that where you look better beforehand. Obviously, you have to put the tan on. We talked about Akeem Williams. Akeem Williams, before he goes to tanning, looks crazier to the point where he's now considering not putting any tan on because he's so dark to begin with. Just put the oil on. Maybe one light coat. I don't know. When that tan sits on your skin, is it filling in some of the detail? I don't really know.
Tuttle went through that. Tuttle competed in the fall and was posting photos and everything and was ripped out of his mind. That was the best shape. And we got to see him up close.
Wasn't it like 2 hours later?
Yeah.
When he put the first coat down, I was
he posted like,
the tanning hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, completely white, see-through basically, where it's like you see every fiber in the muscle. And then he goes and puts the tan on it. It's almost like instead of sinking in, it's almost like it just sits on the skin and covers what should be separation.
It's like a runny look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, Ryan, but who do you have?
Yeah, so I agreed. I agree with actually Gary for the most part. At 5, I have Dorian. At 4th, I have Seth. And at 3rd, I have somebody you guys didn't mention, and I always butcher this guy's name, Samson Dauda.
He can't get the country.
Really?
He's out. Yeah.
Wow. Look at that.
He got stopped at customs. That you can't.
No, I would have had him as well. I would have had him at least. I would say that I probably would have had him around 5th.
Good genetics.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even though he's out, so just for the reason behind it, this look right here is, I believe, from Vancouver of last year, where he placed 8th, but he placed behind Ian. He placed behind Lucas Osladali. He placed behind Nathan, who won the show. And then his best placing was 2nd at the 2019 British Grand Prix, only behind Nathan. So I thought he had a great look. I had no idea up until this point that he didn't get in. But yeah, I would have loved to see him in his lineup. So that's
yeah. He's one of those guys that he's got a good balance of, like, he's kind of got the mass with the class. Like, he's a big dude, but like, the front double that you just shared with everyone, that's a lights out shot, man. Like, that's tough.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with both of you guys with Seth. I think he had. I love to see the shape on a taller bodybuilder the way that Seth has it, and the way Gary kind of explained, like, the newcomers coming in and how they're going to start replacing. And I think, I mean, he has so much potential. It's one of those guys that you look at and you're like, wow, like, sky's the limit for that guy. So it's just, I'm excited to see that. And I think what hurts Dorian is just his height, standing next to some of these guys. But yeah, the top 2, I think I have Hunter coming in 2nd, and I have Ian winning the show.
You have Ian winning, Gary?
I have Ian winning. At first, I wasn't sure, but then I just think that Ian is bigger, and they're both really hard, but it's a different kind of hardness. It's like, dude, like Ian doesn't have the same, this is bodybuilding. Ian doesn't have the same glutes that Hunter does. Hunter's got the dugout lines in his ass.
Yeah.
Ian doesn't, but he's got vascularity through his ass. So pick your poison on what you like, because like Ian reminds me kind of like Juan Morel. Like, he carved up with, like, concrete, and he just, like that, his side to side thickness and his side chest and his side. I mean, Hunter's got an incredible side leg also. Incredible. But Ian, that's his shot. Now, when they turn behind, it's going to be, you see right there, that's nutty.
Wild.
And he says that he's way better than that. He says, I just read today that Ian said at his depletion, he's depleting, or yesterday, all the way to yesterday, he's 12 pounds heavier than last show when he filled up. So
and
he filled up.
That picture, Gary, these photos are 2018 Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at somebody that's 2 years improved from this. Like,
yeah. I just think that when you put him in a lineup, he's gonna maul him a little bit. I think that Hunter, dude, don't get me wrong, Hunter is going to be a top Olympian one day.
Yeah.
He might even win the show. I don't know, but it's Ian is a tough opponent.
Yeah.
And he's got the same similarities. I think that Hunter's lat spread is really cool, but I think Ian's is going to look a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I think that Hunter's legs, even though Ian's legs are huge, Hunter's legs are going to look better. I think they're going to be more dug out from the front. I think that
they have better shape to him as well. Hunter's legs. Yes. I mean, this doesn't really do him all that much justice. He was very watery at nationals. Like, he was like a water buffalo here. Like, look at his midsection. Like, it's completely
not impressed in
it's
these
completely watery. I mean, you see the quads.
Yeah.
I would agree. Like, I think that his quads are going to be more dug out, and they're better shape. Like in some shots, I think Ian will be bigger, and I think that Hunter is just a little bit cleaner put together. Like, on a scale of 10, Ian's shape in some shots might be an 8.5 or a 9, but Hunter's might be a 9.5 or a 10. Like, it's just that little 1% better. And if there's anything, for me, like, if there's anything where Hunter can make up some ground, and I've been an Ian fan, like, he's another guy that I can kind of look to and, long term kind of visualize what I would pray to look like one day, because he's a taller white dude. But with Ian, his posing has been very shaky in the past, like, as far as his mandatories within a lineup. Like, where he starts to fade, he gets shaky and doesn't do a good job holding his poses. On the other end, Hunter is going to be phenomenal at posing. So, if everything is pretty close, if their conditioning is pretty close, and a lot of these shots are pretty close, but Hunter is just much more presentable, there's a case to be made that
sure,
he squeaks by,
But and both of these guys are really well liked. But Hunter does have his name and with it, and that is not to be ignored. They would love to have a second generation Labrada in the Olympia. It makes for a good storyline. Ian's been done. I think Ian's done the Olympia, right, Joe?
Yeah, he's won a show. He's won shows.
Yeah, so he would also be good to have it, but I do think that Hunter does have some of the Derek Lunsford star power running with it. Like, win your first pro show, that just happened to be Tampa, and end up at the Olympia. Not saying that Hunter would be top 5 at the Olympia, but I'm saying like how Derek was. But it just, you got to also play into these storylines a little bit with when it comes at, if it's close, they can manipulate this a little bit. If it's a blowout, if one guy's off in conditioning, carves up the wrong way, then it's clear as day you're not going to do it. But if it's really close and it becomes like a coin flip, but both of these guys are very well known. It's going to be close. I think they're literally going to go shot for shot and see who wins more shots. Like, that shot is going to, I think, beat Hunter, and Hunter's got a good flat spot. He's just, his weight is just, his shoulders are just a lot bigger. His chest is a lot bigger.
Yeah. He's going to be, I think, we can say all this stuff and we can compare fucking Instagram photos back and forth.
Sure.
We're really not going to know until they stand next to each other. And I just feel like when they get next to each other, like how we talked about how Seth kind of improves within a lineup, I think that Ian is going to be much wider. Like, up top, I think he's going to be much wider. So we'll see.
Yeah, Jay Cutler used to look really big in 2013 until he got compared next to Big Ramy, and he looked like an NPC Nationals competitor.
That was like the worst ever version of
that. Was worse. That was the worst. And anyway, that was the first time I ever went to the Olympia. I was so happy to be there. Huge Jay Cutler fan, the return of Jay Cutler. And I'm sitting at pre-gen. I'm like, oh, no. Because Jay was putting up pictures because he was really ripped that year.
He looked really good, yeah.
He was trying to drag it down. He had his shirt on, but at the press conference, but his face was sunk in. I'm like, oh, he's shredded. And then he got out, and it was, what do you expect? The guy was 40 years old that year. Yeah. He's been going since he was 18 years old. I'm sure he might have even took it a little easier on the gear, going into that, so he didn't kill himself. And he knew he was coming in lighter. He was only about 253 at that Olympia, which is compared to 272, which is all these guys' weights is so crazy when you think about it on how much muscle it is. Because I explained to my wife, I'm coming down in weight right now, and I was down up at 300, and now I'm much lower than that. And I'm like, dude, Jay Cutler was at the show, peeled out of his mind at 272. I said, do you know how much muscle is? I said, do you know how long ago I was that? Like, it was like, you can't go by off season what you're judging weight on.
Dude, I watched an interview with Chad Nichols, and he said that I guess it was 2003 version of Ronnie, like the best version ever of Ronnie.
The 296, yeah.
296. That is like I can't wrap my brain around that.
You can't fathom it.
They publicly weighed him in, and everybody was around. In just trunks, he weighed in at the weigh-ins at 296 on the scale.
That's after the out glutes and hamstring tie-ins that you have ever seen on a human being.
They still say that the 1999 and the 2000 Ronnies were crazier though, because he was lighter.
Yeah.
You know,
so let's not fall too far away. We get a little off track here from the show this weekend. So, Joe, I'll start with you. If Ian wins, what sets him apart? If Hunter wins, what sets him apart?
I think if Ian with Ian, it's going to be he just kind of overpowers Hunter in some shots. Like I said, I think that their strengths are similar shot for shot, and their weaknesses are similar. I think they would both agree if you ask them that their back is probably their weakest body part. But with that being said, if that's both their weakest body part and Ian's back is far and away better than Hunter's, I think that's what sets him apart. I think that'll be pretty clear. Conditioning, I think it'll be pretty close. Like Gary was saying, they both have like a grainy look. I would say that Hunter, if you told me after the show one of the two guys missed and missed their conditioning or missed the mark, I would say that it would have to be Hunter. Like I don't think there's any shot that Ian misses. But we've seen Hunter like at Nationals was like off and watery, even though he still won. For Hunter to win, I think his blueprint is to be tight and crisp. Don't worry about being full. Like he's gonna stack up and be in the mix regardless. So don't try to play that game. Come in as sharp as he's shown, and
don't try to outmuscle him.
Yeah, because you're not going to anyway. So 1% extra fullness to sacrifice 5% conditioning in this instance is not worth it for him. So I think that he comes in crisp and peeled, and I think he outpresents Ian. I think that's how Hunter wins. I think he looks like a polished, top-end professional on stage, and that's how he wins.
Well, that's how it's going to go. I foresee them separating the top two guys out for another call out. And you know how it is when you have to stay out there. You're almost like fuck, even though it's good. Yeah. You're in a chance to win. You're like shit. I just send us off, man. And if Hunter is conditioned for that, and Ian is not, I'm not saying it's not, but Hunter will be conditioned for that.
Yeah.
He's probably posing 9,000 times a day.
I was going to ask that. So do you think, and not to cut you off, Gary, do you think that Ian's muscle maturity is better or worse than Hunter's posing? So Hunter's going to come in so smooth and like Cedric's another good example. Like his posing is it's an art. So Hunter's bringing that. So with say their conditioning is equivalent, does Hunter's posing edge out Ian?
It could, depending on how bad if Ian fades, or if Joe said, like he said in the past, he wasn't holding his poses. They're not going to want to see that, especially when a guy is very well holding his poses, right. In Hunter. And especially if they keep them out there. If they don't keep them out there, and I foresee them, they are, because one, this is the first show. We haven't had bodybuilding in forever, and these judges are fresh and want to like do the bodybuilding thing a little bit more right now. They're not like burned out. So they might see these guys. It's going to be close physique-wise. So they're really going to push them. So I'd say whoever can hold it the longest, or, both mentally and physically. Not only you can hold it together mentally and be hitting your poses, but physically you might be fading. I don't know exactly why that happens when somebody starts like flattening out. They might be just burning through all kinds of shit while they're trying to pose, and it's not good for them,
I could totally see them sending everybody off and pulling them back on, especially because these two have really built like a little rivalry leading up to this on social media.
Yeah.
I think they would be foolish to not, take advantage of that hype that those two guys built on their own and let it play out on stage. Like, I don't know. Do we know, are they able to have a crowd?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I heard there's a million rules, so expected. So I don't know about this.
Well, in a regular situation, with how much hype these two have built kind of building this little rivalry back and forth on social media. You know, if it got to the point where the judges sent everybody off and then they said Ian and Hunter to the middle, the crowd would erupt and go absolutely insane. So I think it would be foolish. You know, if those are the two best guys come the day of the show, which we all think it will be, I think they'd be foolish to not stand them next to each other. But who knows? It might be, you know, Seth or somebody else might just be phenomenal and they call out a final three, you know?
Yeah. So I'm looking at my timer here, Gary. I don't mean to cut you off. So I'm looking at my timer here. We have literally about 60 seconds before it kicks us off. So, Gary, if you want to go first, any final thoughts on the 2020 Tampa Pro?
No, I think that's how it's going to go. Unless there's a big curveball in there and big slank ends up in the middle of the whole thing and takes out everybody with that lightning bolt earring.
You think he wears the earring on stage?
I hope so. I hope so.
He probably. They could do different things at the pro level than you can at the amateur level.
Joe, any final thoughts?
No, just looking forward to getting back to seeing some bodybuilding. I like a lot of these guys.
I know,
cool
man.
To see all the work they put in, and you know, thanks for having us on the podcast, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time. We'll be in touch, and thank you guys for joining me on the framework.
See you later.